Hello, everybody. Whoa, is that super loud? How am I sounding? Too loud. A little farther away? Better? Yeah? Awesome. Thank you. Great. I appreciate it. Thanks for the feedback. All right, it is officially 7:01, so we are going to get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Rachel Anderholder, and I'm the Secretary of the Roseway Neighborhood Association. On behalf of the Roseway Neighborhood Association, we want to thank you all for joining us this evening. I think it's kind of starting to rain a little bit, which is weird. We haven't had that for a while, but I'm going to celebrate it because we could use a little rain around here. So thanks for joining us on a rainy January evening. We're going to start it off, and we're going to start it off with a little bit of a housekeeping. So first and foremost, if you are hard of hearing, you can feel free to come up towards the front. We are going to have Zoom captions on the monitor here. So if that is something that you need, please feel free to come up and we'll make sure that there's room. We want to thank Calvary Church for sharing their space with us this evening. It's just a wonderful spot to be able to bring so many people together. A few housekeeping items. The restrooms are to the south of the sanctuary, which is that way. You can, follow the signs down that way. And if you have limited mobility, there's a stair chair that way that goes down to the basement. And you can check in with a board member, an RNA board member. Most of us are wearing these nice little gray shirts and are kind of sprinkled about. You can give a little wave if you're an RNA board member. Awesome. So one of those friendly folks can help you out if you need any assistance. If you haven't already, please use the QR code that was out in the front or in the back table, and you can add your contact information to the sign-up sheet that way. Please provide your contact information and let us know if you'd like to be considered a member of the Neighborhood Association. I'll share a little bit about the Neighborhood Association to come, but it's free and you get a lot of great information from us about things that are happening in the neighborhood. And if you are on Zoom, you can also please provide the same information via Zoom. If you sign up, we'll email you our monthly bulletin and reach out about other opportunities, volunteering, or just exciting things that are happening in the neighborhood like this. And a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. We are live on Zoom right now, we're recording, and it will be posted onto YouTube later. All right, so moving out of housekeeping, I do want to go over some meeting ground rules. We use these meeting ground rules at every meeting that we do, community meetings, also just board meetings. They help guide our time together and make sure that we're creating a respectful and inclusive space. So the first one is to listen with an open mind. That means valuing different inputs, being open to new ideas, and respecting other people's points of view. Think before speaking. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. It's okay to disagree, but please do so respectfully and openly. Avoid exclusionary language. Seek to frame problem statements and proposals in a way that respects and benefits our entire community, not a subset. Request nonviolent communication. If you feel that a neighbor's communication is violent, make an observation about that communication, tell them how it makes you feel, and make a request on what you need for them to do or say differently. Let everyone participate. Share time so that everyone has a chance to share their voice. Be patient, listen to others speak, and do not interrupt, and respect others and value everyone's contributions. Show up on time and come prepared. So good job on that one, everybody that's here. We're getting started. Be prepared to contribute and achieve our meeting goals and come with a positive attitude. Stay mentally and physically present. Be present and focus, listen to others, and do not interrupt or have side conversations. Treat everyone with the same respect you would want from them. Contribute to our meeting goals. Participate completely by sharing your ideas, asking questions, and contributing to discussions. If you state a problem or disagree with a proposal, try to offer a solution. Stay on point and on time, respect the agenda, and keep comments brief and to the point. When a topic has been discussed fully, do not bring it back up. Attack the problem, not the person. Respectfully challenge the idea, not the person. No blame or judgment. Honest and constructive discussion gets the best results. Close decisions and follow up. This is a lot on us as the Neighborhood Association, right? Make sure decisions are supported by the group Identify actions based on decisions made and follow-up actions assigned to you. And record outcomes and share. So take meeting minutes and record issues discussed. We'll be recording on Zoom. Decisions made and tasks assigned. Share meeting minutes with participants and share outcomes with stakeholders that should be informed. Thanks for listening. I know that that's a bit of a list, but it really helps guide our time and make sure that we're here to have a positive and productive evening. For Zoom participants in particular, we ask that you participate as if you were here in person. So if you have a question or comment, please use the raise the hand function in Zoom, and please be patient since we may have specific time windows for Q&A. We've got a wonderful board member that's monitoring our Zoom for us. Avoid side conversations on Zoom. Please avoid responses to comments and extended chat because most of us here in the room won't be able to see that. Be respectful, including the ground rules above. It's easier to pop off a hurtful comment in Zoom chat than you would in a live meeting. So think about whether you would say the same thing if you were here in person with all of us. And you may be muted if you're on Zoom and repeatedly ignore the meeting ground rules. The Roseway Neighborhood Association reserves the right to mute you for the duration of the meeting if need be. All right. Thank you again for listening to that. And now I want to make sure you all know a little bit about the Roseway Neighborhood Association, who we are and what we're doing here. Thank you for helping us to create this positive environment for tonight's meeting. And our mission as the Roseway Neighborhood Association is to maintain and enhance the livability of our neighborhood by making Roseway a better place to live, work, and play. We are a group of volunteers. There are no paid staff for the Roseway Neighborhood Association, and we're committed to making our neighborhood a better place. So just in case, one more time, give a little wave here on the board so people can see the awesome volunteers that are here this evening. We help the neighborhood through a combination of fun and educational events, sharing information, connecting neighbors to resources, and collaborating with the city. We are not a homeowners association, HOA, and there are no dues charged for being a part of the neighborhood association. We have monthly meetings where we discuss ongoing projects and needs for the neighborhood. We meet on the second Tuesday of every month, except for August and December. We meet at 7 p.m. here in this church, and those meetings are open to anybody. So if after this evening you're really excited about things and you want to keep coming, join us for one of those monthly meetings. We host these quarterly community meetings, such as this one, on the fourth Tuesday of the month in January, April, July, and October. And we do have some big events coming up this year, like in previous years. We have our Dumpster Day event, which will likely be at the end of June. And fingers crossed, we're going to be hosting a concert in a neighborhood park later in the summer. So definitely stay tuned for some fun events. And then if you want to learn more about RNA, our upcoming events, and ways to get involved, please make sure, like I mentioned already, to sign up for that monthly e-bulletin. It's been on a brief hiatus in this past year, but we will be back in action for 2026 and sharing news via email. And we also keep our website updated with the latest news. There's a great calendar, there's social media, so you can access all of that information on roseway.org. All right, so I'm going to do a quick preview of the agenda, and then I'll be handing off the mic to some of our other wonderful RNA volunteers before we move into the panel. So we're going to start our program with some brief updates about what's happening in Roseway neighborhood upcoming in 2026 and some highlights of things that happened in 2025. So you're going to hear a little bit about our Roseway Plaza and our placemaking committee updates. You're going to hear about Roseway Prepares, our new emergency preparedness initiative, and also hear about Southeast Uplift, which is the organization that's kind of the umbrella for all of the neighborhood associations in District 3. After those updates, we're going to move on to our main event, hearing from our District 3 councilors. So we're going to ask a couple of questions as the neighborhood association, and then we are going to open it up to you all to be able to ask questions as well. You might have we're going to get into this a little bit more, but just in case anybody's itching, we are going to have a couple different ways for people to ask questions, both on the mic, and also we've got some note cards that are sprinkled about if you want to write a question down, if that's more comfortable for you. So you can do that. There's a little question basket in the back. And then at the end of our meeting tonight, we have some allotted time for some networking and mingling. It's great to hear from our counselors, but it's also important for us to be connected to each other. So we're going to work to end around 8:30 with the panel and then have time for everybody to meet with their neighbors and do some extra talking. And then we are going to wrap up at 9 p.m. All right, so without further ado, we are going to move into those committee reports to make sure you all are updated on the latest happening in the neighborhood. And I'm going to send it over to Catherine Clark with the placemaking committee. So give Catherine a round of applause as she comes up. It's hard to walk up without applause.
Good evening. Thank you for coming out. So I've been involved with the Roseway Parkway the last 12 years about. And I'm just going to give you an update of what's going on out there. So we held a winter solstice gathering on December 20th. We had cocoa and cider, kids made luminarias, and we just kind of hung out. And we hope to make that a yearly event on or about the solstice, depending on holidays and all that. So let's see, we have some new signage on Mason Street leading into the plaza. They're the green signs with directional arrows to Beaumont, and then I forget what's going east, but to let you know where you're going on your bike or walking. They also put down some bike and directional decals on the street on both sides of the plaza, and a few speed bumps going east from 72nd. I think there will be more speed bumps, but there are a few now. Let's see, they did add no parking zones at intersections. They put up signs, no parking, and it's about 10 or 15 feet from the intersection. I'm not sure exactly, but it really improves safety and visibility for bikes and cars and pedestrians at those intersections. Let's see, we're going to have bike racks in our plaza very soon. We're working with Greg Raisman at PBOT. Let's see, the pollinator patches, the 4 patches with native plants around the plaza. We had a small work party to remove the dead plant material recently. And we did leave that intentionally for insect habitat and as a food source. So, and we're going to add more plants to those black planters in the plaza as soon as they're available at the nurseries. Some super drought tolerant, sun loving plants. And now, so with some of our projects underway, we're going to start working on the Roseway Parkway Arboretum designation. So we're forming a governance group, which is one of the requirements through arbnet.org. And this is the same organization that has certified the Ainsworth Linear Arboretum and Meek Technical School and the Rigler Elementary School Arboretum. So we have a group of 4 neighborhood arboretums in Northwest Portland, which is pretty awesome, really. And we have some grant funding to make tree tags for some of the species. We have 42 species right now. Tags that are similar to what urban forestry puts on new trees with the common names, Latin name, plant family, and a little information about the tree. We will also develop a website that'll have information about all of the trees so you can learn. And one of the requirements for the Arboretum designation is that we have at least one tree related event a year, which will be a tree walk sometime in the coming year. And lastly, urban forestry has been out in the neighborhood, getting the utility locates done for the free street trees that people did not opt out of. And they are also going to plant about 6 replacement trees on the parkway for trees that died after heat dome damage or ice storm damage or vandalism in one case. So this will be coming soon. Once they start marking the utilities, then they have a certain period of time that they have to get the trees planted before they have to remark the utilities. So I don't know exactly when, but soon. So keep an eye out. All those white marks on the curb, those are going to be new trees that we need. And their urban forestry will be watering those for property owners or people that reside there. It's a program also available to renters. So keep an eye out for all those trees. And Earth Day, we haven't made any plans yet, but we're thinking about perhaps a picnic or small community gathering and some nature related activities like a tree walk or bird walk, something like that. So that's the Roseway Parkway and the coming Roseway Parkway Arboretum. So
Thank you so much, Catherine. We are so lucky in this neighborhood to have the Roseway Parkway and the plaza. It's a really unique feature throughout the city, and Catherine does a great job helping to steward that. So thank you, Catherine. All right, next we are going to hear from Miller McCobb about Roseway Prepares. Yeah, give it up.
So hello, good evening. Roseway Prepares is our emergency preparedness group here in the Roseway neighborhood, made up mostly of active Portland nets. The Portland Bureau of Emergency Management runs a net program. It's a 28-hour to 30-hour program. We go through trainings like fire suppression, search and rescue, medical triage, basic radio communication, disaster psychology. So once you go through that PBEM training, you become an active net and you join your neighborhood emergency team. And so I'm on that team here in the Roseway neighborhood. And actually somebody was just telling me that yesterday was the 326-year anniversary of the last Cascadia subduction event, which is such a massive earthquake that there was a tsunami in Japan. And they didn't know, they called it an orphan tsunami because nobody felt the earthquake in Japan. So yeah, we're gonna get another one of those. It could be in a year, it could be in 100 years. We don't know, but we here in the Roseway neighborhood are meeting on a monthly basis to prepare for such an emergency. There's a lot of other emergencies that can fall under that umbrella. If we had a big ice storm, we might get deployed to go basically stand and make sure that nobody runs into a live electrical line, that sort of thing. We are not first responders. We're sort of like a sous chef for a first responder. We just sort of, do what we can to support them until they can arrive on the scene. Right now, our focus is we're doing various training exercises. We recently did a radio exercise to test the radio coverage in the Roseway neighborhood. Once we did that, we established our staging area. So if there is a big disaster here in the Roseway neighborhood, you can go to the Roseway Plaza. That's going to be our staging area. If we can't use that as our staging area, because maybe there's live wires or like there's too much tree damage, our second staging area is going to be in the Safeway parking lot, kind of in the Xfinity area. So that's just good for the neighborhood to know. We are also working, we just finalized our ops plan, which for the active nets, that's sort of our protocol and what we would do in the event of an emergency. And we're also working on funding our emergency cash. So we have a supply of right now we're working mostly on medical supplies, and we're doing different fundraising to store that cash. If you would like to get involved, we've got a QR code in the back. You can join, you can become an active net. You could go through the PBEM training yourself. You could sign up for publicalerts.org, and you can also just join the Roseway Prepares mailing list and get regular updates from us. All right, thanks.
Thank you so much, Miller. Yeah, this is another project that we've been spending a lot of time on as the board, and something that I've learned a lot about through this process is that this community here, neighbors helping neighbors, is really the first line of action in an emergency. So it's great that you all are here tonight to learn about this, and definitely check out the Roseway Prepares table in the back. Last update from the board is going to be from Ash Hester to talk about Southeast Uplift. Applause, applause. Woo. Good evening. So Southeast Uplift, also known as the acronym SEUL, that's SEUL. So there's two ways of how people might communicate about it, is, as Rachel said, our district coalition for District 3. We're very fortunate tonight to actually have the executive director, Nancy, and the land use and transportation chair and staff, Machu, if you guys can raise your hand, joining us this evening for on the sideline later this evening to ask some questions. They're here for it. A quick little summary of the organization. Southeast Uplift collaborates with Portland District 3's community to build informed, inclusive, and participatory neighborhoods that support our social and ecological well-being. The organization is consisted of a board of directors, very similar to the Roseway Neighborhood Association. And that represents mostly of all the neighborhoods within the District 3. So it has that broad representation. It also has the district or the business districts and nonprofits, organizations within the area, and then members at large can also be a part of the board. So if that is something of interest to you, the organization also hosts a handful of committees that are open to the public. So the land use and transportation, the climate justice action, houselessness action, and community care and safety. Those are all great ways to plug into if you're looking for an outlet to foster community, meet some neighbors, and build some local impact. Lastly, Southeast Uplift also offers workshops, has a fiscal sponsorship program, awards small grants, and is just a general community hub for local events. I encourage you all to check out their website to stay engaged, learn more about those upcoming events, and yeah, reach out to Roseway, the email as well, if you ever want to inquire more information. All right, thank you so much, Ash. And yeah, SEUL is just a wealth of information and has lots of great ways to plug in and also learn. So thanks for listening to our updates and hearing what's going on in the neighborhood, and hopefully get excited about other ways that you can be involved and participate with what's going on right here in Roseway. All right, well, now is the hour that I'm guessing you've probably all been waiting for. We are going to move into our panel with the district councilors. Before we launch into the panel itself, I want to prep you all for participating in the panel as well. So to get us started, I'm going to be asking the councilors a few questions, and then you as an audience are going to have a turn as well. As I mentioned, we have a couple different ways for you to participate this evening. We know folks have different comfort levels with public speaking, and so we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to ask a question if they like. So you'll see a basket. I think Courtney is next to the basket in the back. You can write down a question if you'd like and put it in that basket. We'll also kind of be walking through when the time comes if you want to put that in. And feel free to get up and write a question at any point. And if you'd like to write your name and email address on your piece of paper, that's an option for you as well. We will share any unanswered questions that we don't get to this evening with our counselors. And so that's an opportunity for them to be able to follow up with you if you feel comfortable putting your name and email address down on that piece of paper. Secondly, we will have a microphone up here at the front. Chris, will you give a little wave? And right here, yeah. So if you are comfortable when the time comes, we'll ask that anybody that wants to ask a question live and in person come up and line up at this microphone. We know that a lot of folks have big voices, but we ask you to please come use the microphone, as we've got folks on Zoom and it's a lot easier for everybody to be able to hear if you're using the mic. We'll ask that you, again, please join us up front to ask a question. And in order to give as many folks as possible the opportunity to ask a question this evening, we're going to put some parameters on question asking. So any person that's asking a question at the microphone will be given 30 seconds to ask their question. At the end of 30 seconds, we'll have a nice little chime for you. You want to give a little chime? Aha. So we have a nice little chime for you so you can wrap up your question. And Chris is actually going to be holding the microphone for folks. So that way, if things are going longer than 30 seconds, Chris reserves the right to be able to remove the microphone. So that'll help us keep things moving and make sure that as many folks as possible have the opportunity to ask a question. When it's your turn to ask a question, please share your name and then go directly into a one-sentence question. And as we said, there will be 30 seconds, so you can clarify as time allows after your question. We're going to rotate through different modes. So we'll have one person asking a question at the mic, then Chris is going to read one of the questions from the basket, and then we'll also have the opportunity for somebody from Zoom to read. Erica will read one of the questions from Zoom. So we want to make sure that there's equal participation in all the different ways. So one question on the mic, one written question, one Zoom question. And I think those meeting ground rules are kind of sprinkled about on the pews. We read through them. So just another reminder to make sure that you're referencing those meeting ground rules as you're thinking about coming up to the mic and sharing anything this evening. So thank you for your understanding and for sharing the stage with your fellow neighbors and practicing respectful discourse this evening. So speaking of respectful discourse, I am a educator, facilitator in another life, and I think it's important for all of us to talk with one another in addition to talking to our counselors. So we're going to give the counselors a little bit of time to come up to the stage here, and while we're doing that, you all get to practice asking questions and getting to know your neighbors. So before we launch, I'm going to give you some time to get your creative juices flowing. I ask that you will get up, stretch a little because it's kind of sleepy. It's January, it's dark out, right? So move your body a little bit. Try and find somebody else in the room that you don't know. And I have a couple of prompts for you. It should be hopefully pretty easy. Share your name and your connection to Roseway. And then what's one question that's on your mind that you would want to ask our district counselors here tonight? And then you can thank your new friend for sharing with you. So we're going to have 4 minutes for you all to get up, stretch a little bit, make a new friend, chat, and I will give you like a 1-minute warning to come back to your seats, and then we'll launch into the panel. Got it? Ready, go. Oh, wow. Thanks a lot. I'm gonna
All right. Yeah. So. It's a pretty good turnout. So it's so dumb.
All right, everybody, we've got about 30 seconds and then we're gonna get started. So if you wanna thank your new friend and head back to your seats, and then we'll launch into the panel. Oh my gosh, you all follow directions so well. Thank you. No, seriously, thank you all for getting up and sharing. I might sound like a bit of a broken record at this point in time, but it's really important for all of us to talk to our neighbors and to hear from other folks and meet some new people and be looking out for one another and having other people's thoughts on our minds. So thank you so much for participating and for taking that energy into our conversation with our counselors this evening. And like I said, we'll aim to have about 30 minutes at the end of the evening for more mingling and more opportunities for y'all to connect with each other. All right, now, with all of your wonderful patience, we are going to turn it over to our counselors. Please welcome Analita Borillo. Wonderful, wonderful. Tiffany Coyamalain. And Steve Novik. I could have said hold the applause till the end, but I really like that you all got your own individual applause. That was really nice. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much for being here this evening and for sharing your time with us. This is our now second annual, kind of third annual time of you being on this stage. So we're really grateful to have your presence here this evening. As a reminder, you all will each have a 2-minute time limit for each of our questions, just to make sure that we are moving through and then also getting to questions from the audience. Chris is going to be, he's got the chime for you as well. So Chris K, not Chris H. We got 2 Chris's. But yeah, so we will have a 2-minute chime to help you if you're getting to that 2-minute time limit. So y'all have been in office for a year now, so we're gonna skip introductions and we're just gonna go right into some questions. Sound good? Great. Okay, so our first question is kind of a 2-part question, and we're starting with some reflection. What do you think is the biggest accomplishment that the newly formed Portland City Council achieved this year? And what is the #1 priority in your mind for the council to accomplish in the year to come? And do you all have, Anahita, you're next to me, so why don't we just go down the line on this one? Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. So good to see you. It's really an honor to get to be here with you tonight and with my colleagues. I think that obviously Portland and the entire country has been facing a very challenging and difficult year. We have been facing unprecedented attacks from the federal government. We're in an extremely difficult economic climate. But I think that something that council has successfully done this year is that we have been able to come together to address the ills of the federal government, the ways that they are attacking our neighbors, our immigrant neighbors as well. And we have, battled it out on the policy stage to try to figure out the best ways to protect Portlanders and our constituents in a very difficult time. So I am very honored to be fighting alongside my colleagues here in District 3 and my colleagues in other districts on something that is a very difficult issue. There are a lot of issues in Portland where we differ on things, but knowing that we are going to defend our immigrant neighbors and that we are not going to allow the federal administration to harm Portlanders is something that we all agree on and we have all stood firm in. And so I'm very heartened by that. And I think that some of the challenges that we're going to face is we just elected a new council president. We're going to have to tweak the governance structure again as far as the committees that we have. We have a lot of committees and that has bogged down a lot of our time and ability to pass policy. So I think that we're going to be working together to tweak those things. And when you're trying to create a government that's going to last ideally, the next 100 years, people have a lot of thoughts, feelings, and ideas about how to do that. So I think that will all be healthy tension, but I think that there will be tension there. Thank you.
I was thinking about talking about the federal response also. I feel proud of that, and I decided I was going to talk about over the last year how much we've worked on governance, which I know isn't the sexiest or most exciting thing, but it is very important to make sure as we're starting this new form of government that things are running smoothly. I have been honored to serve as the governance chair over the last year, and we've been able to do some important things like pass different pieces of legislation to decide what will processes look like when we're voting, committees. We just passed as a full council our first governance handbook, which I believe is really important. It pulls information from the charter, from code, from different places. So in one place you can look and see very plainly, what's the difference between an ordinance and a resolution? What are the powers that the city attorney has? What are the powers that the auditor has? That type of document, I believe, is really important for the public, also for students, and also for someone like me that came into this role as a political outsider that didn't have a ton of information of what it would be like in City Hall. I would have really loved to have a handbook like that. So I hope that having that is going to be something that benefits everyone. I got to spend a lot of time on the committee also working closely with GTAC, the Government Transition Advisory Committee. That's made up of different community members that have been advising the transition. And so they played a huge role. Looking forward to the next year, we're seeing cuts. We know they're coming to transportation. It's huge. I'm hearing it about that from constituents all the time. And also our council has said unanimously that it's really important that we are eliminating traffic deaths and traffic injuries, and that we are investing in making sure that we're getting folks to slow down and that everyone can get to and from work and school safely. So I'm going to be really hoping that we are talking about Vision Zero, and even as there are cuts, that it's something that we're prioritizing. I believe this is the time that we have to double down on that, and everyone, I see the chimes coming. I love that it's a legit teacher chime. It's not like on a phone. Yeah, my kids bike to school every day. I want to live in a city that is really working towards making sure that we don't have traffic injuries and death.
So in terms of local policies that the city council passed this last year, I think I can make a good case that the most significant was suspending systems development charges for the next 3 years. Systems development charges are charges attached to new housing that are used to expand the transportation system, build new parks, et cetera, all good things. But they're basically a tax on new housing at a time when producing more housing is a priority. So the mayor came to us for a proposal to suspend SDCs And I think that we voted unanimously for that. Because although all of us value the services that SECs pay for, we recognize that building new housing is a priority. And also, frankly, another concern I had is that we've been using SDCs to build new parks for years and years. We don't have the money to maintain the old ones. So I thought that we needed that it was useful to have a pause just for that purpose. Something that should be a focus in the next year, again, I'll stick with housing, is the mayor has said that he wants to build 20,000 new housing units by 2030, I think it was. And, wait a minute, is it 2030 or 2035? Anyway, one of these years. No, I think in the next 8 years. And that's far more than the amount of housing that we've been generating. I think it's probably far more than most cities our size have been generating. And we need to have him lay out how he thinks we get there. We need to look at other cities that are overperforming and see how they get there. What matters the most? Is it speeding up permitting? Is it changing zoning? Is it some sort of tax incentive? Is it changing things like design review? So I'm really looking forward to that conversation. I hope that there is actually a way to get there, because most people will say that the homelessness crisis is largely a housing crisis, and until we have more housing, we're going to continue to struggle with houselessness. So I hope that there's a way to get to where the mayor wants to go, and I think that's going to be a very intense discussion.
Steve, why don't you just hold the microphone and we'll go in reverse order. Are you okay with that? All right.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. So the next question.
You have to make Tiffany go first at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm all about making sure that everybody gets their fair share there. So the next question that the Roseway Neighborhood Association committee developed was, we have a roughly 20% vacancy rate on Sandy Boulevard. So right here in the neighborhood, just, across the street, basically. Vacant storefronts are a major concern for our neighborhood and the city at large. What are you doing to support the health of businesses in District 3?
First of all, I have to say something I meant to say at the beginning, which is Miller stole my thunder. I was going to talk about yesterday being the 326th anniversary of the Cascadia subduction earthquake. That was the most interesting thing I had to say, and she stole it. So I'm better. In terms of businesses on Sandy Boulevard and the rest of District 3, I think that the most important thing that a city can do to promote the business environment is to make the city as livable and safe as possible. So I think that if we are able to reduce crime, then that helps small business. If we are going to able to reduce the amount of open unsheltered homelessness, that helps business. If we're able to get rid of open air drug markets, that helps small business. We also always need to be looking for ways to change city rules, which make it harder to do business. And there, we hear of various things every once in a while. I encourage you to contact us and say, here is something that makes it harder to do business here. Can you help us with that? I'm going to mention a small thing that my office is working on. It's a really small thing, but it struck us as something that the city requires that's silly, and we should stop it. Which is, right now you need a permit to put a sandwich board outside a restaurant or other business. And a lot of people don't even know that, so they put the sandwich boards out without the permit, but then there's like earnest, very well-informed people who dutifully pay the fee and sign up to get a permit to put a sandwich board out. And I think that that's just silly. I mean, if you're blocking the sidewalk, then you'll have to take down your thing, but you shouldn't have a permit just to, have that simple little advertisement of your business with the sandwich board. Another similar thing is we discovered we need a permit to have a pool table in your business, a specific permit for that, which is like a holdover when pool tables were associated with like gambling and vice, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to take a look at that. But so if there's things that you can suggest that make it hard to do business that the city can address and change, if there's something that exists here but doesn't in other cities, and that makes it easier, then let us know. But I still think that the most important thing that we can do to promote business is to make Portland overall a better place to live, and where people will feel, that it's safe to walk around, where we're going to have visitors from outside of Portland come in, and I think that applies across the city.
I love hearing about those two things. I'm excited to hear where those go. Something that my office has been working on specifically in this area with now Council President Dunphy's office is exploring what a vacancy fee would look like for vacant storefronts for commercial spaces. It's something that seems like a no-brainer. I will say a lot of things, once you start looking into them, you have to do the research and figure out, how exactly it works. What is helpful is that I'm connected with quite a few progressive local electeds from across the country, some of which who have passed a similar fee. So San Francisco has a fee like this. There's a couple places in Colorado that have them. And what I am hearing and what we're seeing in some of the research is that the fees are bringing in funds. They're not necessarily filling the storefronts. And so we're wanting to make sure that how we move on this is really intentional, and that we don't just do it and have a fee, but to make sure that we do it really right and think about the problem that we're trying to solve. Some of you might have seen also Pendleton recently passed a fee. So we're looking into how to incentivize and really, think about the trade-offs. And if the point is really to get these spaces filled, to be thinking about that. I will also say personally, I make sure to spend my dollars at small businesses, and at every point that I can try to uplift different small businesses, hold my monthly constituent coffees at different small businesses around District 3. I also have been meeting monthly with some different small business advocacy groups. So there's one called Portland Business for All, and really hearing from them. I mean, things like Novik saying, you don't really know unless you're hearing from folks that are experiencing it, like, oh, I have this fee for my sandwich board, hearing from them, what do they need? How can I be supporting them? How can I also be holding this space monthly so they can come together? Yeah, so thank you for the question.
You can tell Counselor Koyama Lane is a teacher because she showed up with all her notes and we're just sitting here like a bunch of schmucks. I actually love what Counselor Koyama Lane said. I was going to bring up the vacancy fee as well. I have not worked on it. It's something that I'm interested in supporting. I believe it was Counselors Dunphy and Canal who requested that the city administrator do a report on it so we can get more information on it. But that's definitely something that I've heard from small businesses in Portland is that, yes, there are different barriers to running a business. And one of those is that the rent to own your small business or to, run it out of a building is too high. And so I think that's something that we're seeing not just from renters who are living in Portland, but also renters who are trying to run their businesses in Portland. But to me, I think the main things that I see that could support businesses is we are in a very difficult economy right now. People don't have a lot of extra money to spend. People are struggling to spend money on rent and food. And when that happens, that means that they are not going to be going out to get that coffee. They are not going to be going out and spending money in small businesses. So I think as a council, we have to do things like what Councilor Novik listed earlier to, build more housing, make sure it's affordable. My office passed the algorithmic price fixing ban in order to ensure that rent prices aren't going exorbitantly high because of rental AI price fixing. And I also think that Sandy Boulevard particularly is very important for people who commute. I am someone who is a transit rider. I don't have my license. I don't have a car. And on Sandy Boulevard, they are talking about eliminating the bus 19 and potentially other bus lines because TriMet is really struggling right now. So when I think about spaces that are really activated and people are getting a lot of business, I see that happening on corridors where there's a lot of transit. It's very walkable and accessible to people. And I think that that's sort of what I'm envisioning with Sandy Boulevard. If we could do that in the years to come, how do we make Sandy Boulevard a place that is safe and accessible and fun for pedestrians and bikers and bussers to be? Thank you.
Thank you all so much for those thoughtful and intriguing. It's funny when you start digging into things, the types of things that you can uncover, right? All right, final question from the Neighborhood Association, and then we'll open it up to the general audience here this evening. And yes, we will start with Tiffany this time. So given concerns from community members about increased ICE presence and activity in Portland, what measures beyond the existing right to know who's policing ordinance are you advancing to protect residents from ICE enforcement actions?
Yeah, this is a really important question, and I first want to acknowledge that we're in times where we're seeing really horrifying things. We're seeing protesters being executed on the street. It's really, really scary, and it's really heavy, and I'm hearing from people that it's hard to even just absorb and kind of know where to go, and it's hard to not just be doom scrolling. I can share a little bit. I think what's important, kind of in addition to the unmasking ordinance that is coming from Councilor Canal soon, that we are throwing sand in the gears, that we're throwing little rocks in the gears as much as possible. So some of the things that my office is working on specifically is around protecting the LGBTQIA plus community, adding that community to our sanctuary status, talking about doing things like making gender neutral signage on bathrooms, something that has to be done. Those little things add up. There's not going to be one thing that is going to protect all of democracy, and but all these little things are very important. That's why when we codified our sanctuary status, the whole council, like Councilor was talking about, stood together and did that. We also directed through the Protect Portland initiative some different things that the executive branch is enacting. And so part of it is making sure that there's oversight and those things are happening, which they've been pretty good partners. Some of the things that are in that initiative is that they need to have an information hub on the different things that city workers and city folks can be looking at throughout the city for information and for support. There's also now a liaison specific that specifically coordinates with things that are coming, keeping an eye on what's coming down from the federal government. So keeping an eye on those things. And then I'm also going to say something that might be like a little strange to hear from a politician, but I do feel like politicians aren't going to save us. Like politicians, like there's no, well, it is actually true. I mean, it's like we're all going to save us. And actually, when I was sitting in the back of the room and just like hearing about the different things that you guys are doing, I was just like, yes, this is what we need to be doing. Like emergency planning, solstice parties, like having each other's contact info. Like it's literally talking to and knowing your neighbors. That's going to be incredibly important because politicians come and go, policies, priorities come and go. And what we really need is to continue to be building like a movement with a tent that we're just making as big as possible. And we're letting everyone come in that can come in because that's what we're going to need to do to save democracy. And I think sometimes I talk to people that come to my constituent coffees and they're like, how are we going to save democracy? How are you going to save democracy? And I'm like, it's going to be step by step and it's going to be all of us. And it's going to be like we're going to be the ones helping each other. And it can feel like hard to imagine doing everything, but like some people, not everyone has to wear the frog costume, but some people are going to, and some people are going to make music and protest that way. And some people are going to be engaging with parents on the playground and saying like, hey, let's go to this volunteer meeting together. And so I just want to encourage and empower all of you, like look around. This is actually like pretty amazing that you can get folks to do this at the end of the day and come and show up. Like we have to keep doing these things and remember that like we're going to be the ones that help each other and save each other. Okay, now which direction do I go? Okay.
There's a lot to say on this one for us as far as the federal response. And there are things that local government can do, and there are things that we need our congressional leaders to step up and do. And I think that we are doing everything we can at the local level. So me and Councilor Green created the detention facility impact fee. Raise your hand if you know about that. Okay, so some of you. It's essentially a fee so that detention facilities like the McAdam ICE building that are using exorbitant amounts of tear gas against protesters that's seeping into the neighborhood, into people's apartments, and into the river are actually going to have to pay a fine for how much damage they are doing to the city. And that money will go back into a fund that will help people who are living in the apartment across the street who are getting tear gas in case they need to move, in case they need to buy air filters, in case they need to do that type of thing. It would also go towards helping people who need expenses with legal fees because they are immigrants that are being targeted. So I think that we have to find creative ways like that. Counselor Novick and I are also working on a privacy policy to create a data privacy office at the city of Portland. That's actually coming up to council on Thursday. And that is incredibly important because we know that ICE is using people's data in order to track immigrants and to track activists and protesters. So we need to make sure that whatever data the city is collecting is protected, and also make sure that the city is collecting as little data as possible so that we don't have to mitigate that harm. It's just something that's not being collected in the first hand. I think that in the 21st century, fascism is actually going to operate through the mass collection of people's data and tracking people. So we need to do what we can at the local level to ensure that we're stopping that. There is also the big question of the land use permit for the McAdam Ice Building. Raise your hand if you've heard about that issue. Okay, most of you. So there are big misconceptions right now that city council can just single-handedly revoke the ice permit. That is somewhat inaccurate. Right now, the permit is with the city administrator, the mayor, and the permitting department. And it is in that position until they take certain steps that will then move the permit back to city council for an investigation and a vote. So today, Councilor Green and I we put out a letter as the sponsors of the detention facility impact fee to the mayor, and we said, hey, we need you to hustle on getting the implementation done for the detention fee, because we just saw our constituents getting tear gassed to hell, frankly, this past weekend, and we passed the legislation. It is your job as the executive to execute it. And so we are using the tools that we have for oversight on the executive to make sure that when council passes a policy to protect Portlanders, that we are working in partnership with them and they are executing our policies. So those are some of the things that we've been working on, and thanks for your time.
One thing I do want to say about what politicians can do to save us is that, as I think Council Maria kind of referenced, Democrats in Congress now are talking about refusing to fund the government until they pull ICE out of Minnesota, Minneapolis, until they stop doing that, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure our delegation will be for that, but I'm still going to contact each of them and say, hold on to that. It is worth shutting down the government to stop what's been happening in Minneapolis and around the country. So I fervently hope that will work. One thing I wanted to mention is a friend of mine asked me a couple weeks ago, shouldn't there be a public website where anybody can upload their videos where they're observing what ICE is doing? And actually, colleagues, is there such a public website that I'm just not aware of?
You can file, sorry, you can file complaints through the permitting department, and sometimes you can submit evidence through there. So I would recommend doing that. That's part of the data gathering that they're doing in order to build up their case if we do have to revoke the permit.
Okay. What my friend had in mind was just something that everybody knows about. You just, without going through any bureaucracy, just throw your video of ICE misbehavior up there. And I asked the mayor about that, and he said that sounds like something the ACU might do. So I emailed Sandy Chun, who's the Stanford ACLU, and I got an email back saying she gets lots of emails. She might take a little back today, which is understandable. But that's something that, you know, the more we're able to document and share documentation, I think that helps. Another thing I want to mention is that I asked Chief Day if he can think about, are there circumstances where federal officials are beating the hell out of defenseless, peaceful protesters? Are there circumstances where the police will physically intervene? That's a very tough question for them because they want to get in a firefight with federal officials. They'd probably be criminally prosecuted for interfering with federal officials, but I think it's a question that has to be asked, because what the lawyers say is when the federal officials are clearly acting outside of their authority, then yes, the police can intervene. And I think we need to know, are there circumstances where they're clearly acting outside of their authority, where the police will intervene, scary as that is? And Chief Day said he's been thinking about that. He's been talking to other chiefs around the country about it. I don't think he's ready to sort of publicly opine on that, but I think he will be soon. So, and that's just a grim question that we have to ask. I mean, we saw at the ICE facility, an 84-year-old couple, or both of them were over 80, were beaten to the ground. That our officers should at some point, I think, step in, dangerous as it is, and we need to figure out where that line's drawn.
I'm sure we've got a lot more to dig into.
Yeah, I was just gonna say to, in response to Councilor Novak, I mean, what I am seeing it is that we have more constituents that are filming and are posting on Instagram and are sending, I mean, I'm getting these links. And so I have some constituents that do this often. This morning, we got one of someone who was videotaping outside of McAdam, and 3 of the cars that left the ICE facility all didn't have license plates. And so they were showing me that information and asking if the city can do anything. I mean, and put it on Instagram, email it to me. I will make sure that like I send it to Chief Day and share it with my colleagues. And while that isn't maybe only what Instagram's used for, I think that is how some people are using it, and it's one way, one tool.
All right, thank you all so much. Obviously, there's a lot to dig into this evening on these questions, and I'm sure others that will be asked by our wonderful neighborhood audience members today. So it is y'all's turn to ask some questions. So as we mentioned, we have some ground rules and some processes. So if you have a question and you want to ask it live on the mic, now is the time to come on up and stand up, and if you can even kind of get into a line if you would like. So that's the process, is coming up to the microphone, no need to raise hands. We will be rotating between microphone, reading, and Zoom. And if you still have written questions that you like, I think you can, Courtney, can you still kind of like roam around? Courtney's in the back. If you kind of raise your hand, Courtney can grab a question for you and bring it up to the front as well. So as a reminder, please limit your questions to 30 seconds so that we can have as many folks answering or asking questions as possible. And let's go ahead and jump into it.
Right, for our first, we'll have our first in-person question right here.
Hi, thanks for being here. My name is Katie Philp. I've lived in the neighborhood for about 25 years. This is on top of the question that the Roseway Neighborhood Association asked about the economic development that could happen. And as you know, there's a thing called TIP, tax increment financing. One goes all the way to 74th. That's either Park Rose or 82nd. We have one in Cully. Roseway is left out of that. So the question would be, would you consider amending the recently adopted TIP districts to include areas along Sandy West toward Northeast 65th that suffer high vacancies and chronic lack of investment? So just really looking at TIP and seeing if we could benefit, because it's always like, Roseway doesn't need anything. They're good. They're good. They're good. This has been going on for 20 years, and we'd like some help too. Thank you.
Somebody will call to answer.
Thank you for that question. It's reminding me of some neighborhoods. I'm thinking about students too, that are kind of on the cusp that get forgotten a little bit, where it's like, oh, it's not bad enough. But not like, yeah, that in kind of getting lost. I'm not sure what it actually takes to amend the TIF districts, but looking into this is something that I'm absolutely interested in doing. And if you want to check in with my office and see how we can explore this, I will have to admit, I don't know exactly the whole route for how to become a TIF district, but I am happy to look into that and discuss it with you. And your experience being in this district for 25 years means a lot.
Anybody else want to? I would just add that I think this is a discussion that we are having in sometimes in the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, or sometimes in the Climate and Land Use Committee. So those are opportunities where, if this is something folks wanted to look into, emailing the folks on those committees, or even coming and testifying in person or virtually would be really helpful. But that's something we can certainly look into.
Awesome, thank you. And you'll see that I've actually moved. So it occurred to me that one of the reasons like City Club has the line on the side is that people don't necessarily want to stand blocking everyone's view. So if you're more comfortable queuing up for a question on the side here, please come around this side and come on up. We have one person in person. I've got plenty of cards in the basket as well. So I'm gonna ask the first one of those. So I'm just kind of peering behind that monitor. What priorities are you setting for the city administrator in the coming year?
You know, Vic's smile. Do you want the first answer or should I take a bite of it?
Either way.
Okay. I've had a really wonderful time meeting the new city administrator. I think he brings a completely different perspective, having been, from out of state. So one of the things that we ended up talking about was like, is it normal for $21 million to just go missing from a bureau and then for us to find that and figure that out during a budget crisis? Because when I heard that, I thought that was absolutely bonkers. He told me that he also thought that was bonkers and that there is a cultural issue at the city as far as the expectations that we have for some of that more meticulous data tracking, especially for funding and dollars, which I think we do not have. Every single dollar counts when we are having to face difficult budget decisions, when we are having to lay off critical staff. So I'm really excited to dig into that part of the oversight with him. I think that he is a city administrator who won't be afraid to challenge both the council and the executive, the mayor, on some of the things that we're bringing forward, while also trying to make sure that we are all working together. So I think that there's going to be a lot of oversight work on the executive branch that has to be done this year. And a lot of that is going to be with regards to funding and making sure that when council passes a policy priority, the executive branch is actually executing it. Because we have seen as a council, sometimes we'll pass something with urgency, we are moving quickly, we are hustling for our constituents. But if the executive branch is not actually implementing it, then our communities aren't seeing the hustle, right? And that's not something that I think is acceptable when people are demanding that we act with urgency. So I think those are the challenges and the expectations that I have for the city administrator. And I don't know him super well. We've only met a few times, but I think that he is up to the challenge. Thanks.
I feel very hopeful about City Administrator Lee and the skills that he's bringing in and his expertise. Just the fact that he's been a city administrator in other cities, I think it's great. And he knows a lot of just the basics. And I also respect that he's doing one-on-ones with every single counselor and has been prioritizing that. So when I met with him, I talked about, kind of some of the things I've mentioned, some basic governance things. He is on board with just some of the basic things that I've been trying to get us to do. Like, what does it look like for us to sit down and talk about some norms of how we talk to each other, to do some strategic planning. And so we're moving forward with those pieces. Have talked to him about Vision Zero, and I've also talked to him about age-friendly cities, which is a specific concept that Portland actually has been a leader on, but has kind of, since Nick Fish's passing, has kind of slipped away from a little bit. So the city is a designated age-friendly city, and we do some partnership work with AARP to make sure that through the Bureau of Planning Sustainability, we're really thinking about all ages, from like an 8-month-old to an 88-year-old, and making sure that our neighborhoods and our city works for all ages, all abilities. We definitely have these plans. You might have heard, like, Portland is a city that has a lot of plans on the shelf. And so I told him that I'm hoping that he can be part of helping me make sure that we take that age-friendly city plan off the shelf and are using that as a sort of lens that we're looking through and running things through as we're making planning and changes in our city. So age-friendly cities, look it up, and hoping that we can be back on the map as the leader in that area.
There's two specific things that I've spent some time talking to the city administrator about, both since he had his job and actually during the interview process. One is that over the past year, there's been times where city staff feel like council members have brought things forward without adequately vetting them with staff. There's also been a lot of times where council members and city staff feel frustrated that they're not allowed to communicate with each other. That we have a hard time getting to the specific subject matter experts within the Bureau. And I've also heard indirectly that subject matter experts within the Bureau feel frustrated about being able to talk to us. And that, frankly, is because there's some high people in management who are kind of, or perceived by their staff as control freaks, and they don't want anybody talking to councilors that are going through them first. Now, those two things, council passing things without adequate consultation and council and staff being frustrated about the lack of communication, feed into each other. So I told Administrator Lee that I thought one of his first priorities would be to sort of sit down with the mayor and city staff and figure out what is the appropriate way to have communication with the city council, what sort of hoops do people have to jump through to answer our questions or to volunteer information. I think that as a governance matter, that's incredibly important. Another thing I asked him to do was, if he sees the council about to do something really stupid, please step forward and say so. Because last year, there's some things that happened in the budget that I at least thought we were going off sort of at the deep end. And it was left to like individual staff members from bureaus to maybe tentatively come up and say, well, I see a problem with that. And I really thought that was the job of the city administrator to come forward and say, hey, here's why I, as a city administrator, think that doesn't make any sense. So I asked him, what did he feel like his role would be in that situation to, defer to the mayor or decide, no, I'm not gonna get into a fight with the council, et cetera. And he said, well, I think I'd be paid to express my opinion. So that's one of the reasons I was excited about it, was that he gave that answer to that question. Another reason I was excited about him actually, which is another sort of testing about his forthrightness, was he was a University of Kansas graduate. And as Kansas is one of the basketball powers for years and years. But this year they're not doing too well. So I asked him, does that mean that, what do you think about that? Is this just a blip, or do we need a new coach? And he said, we need a new coach. He doesn't know how to coach in the current environment. So I thought that the fact that he had a strong forthright answer to that question gave me a good feeling about it.
Sometimes you gotta know who the right coach is, Okay, back over to our in-person questions.
Good evening, thanks. My name is Dave Haley. Lived in Portland now, probably 4 years, something like that. My question is, earlier we were talking about small businesses. We of course value those, especially in a neighborhood like ours. But as a city, we need large businesses to help pay the bills. What is council doing to help attract and retain some big companies to come here and help us share these taxes? So.
That's a tough one. I mean, to a great extent, whether big businesses exist or started a place is accidental. I mean, Phil Knight was in Oregon, so that's why Nike's in Oregon. But Intel has a major presence here, in part because the people who ran Intel thought that the Portland area is a really nice place and they'd be able to attract top talent to be here. That was, we historically, we don't have a major research university in Portland. We don't have a suite of pre-existing, Fortune 500 headquarters here. Our secret sauce was always our livability, which attracted smaller businesses, which hopefully some of which would grow into big ones. So, and we lost our reputation over the last 6 years. It used to be that there's this annual survey of like real estate investors, and we were like towards the top of that. This is the place you want to invest. Now we're second to the bottom. And that's largely because starting during the pandemic, for a variety of reasons, people got this idea of Portland as a crime-ridden place that was completely overrun with homeless camps, which is always an exaggerated idea, but that's the perception that was out there. And that's one reason that, although I know there's arguments against it, I've been supportive of the mayor's plan to do what we can to reduce unsheltered homelessness, because I think that it's critical to our economic revival. And I also, I've been, as co-chair of the Public Safety Committee, I've been looking at ways we can, within our existing budgets, improve policing, like look at examples of places that do a good job of solving crimes and investigating crimes. I know small business people are very frustrated, they've been burglarized numerous times, the crime's never investigated. So should we move more resources into investigation? So again, I mean, it's attracting either big or small business means in large part improving our reputation. And I actually think that the protests over the past few months have helped, because the frogs, the unicorns, all of that stuff, we have been a model for how people react to this tyrannical federal government. And I think to some extent that has revived our Portlandia image, that we're not like, we're not a hellhole, we're a really cute place. So I think I'd like to think that's been really valuable. There's people in the business community who agree with that. That they think that the way that citizens, and this was not organized, this was spontaneous, the way citizens have handled the protest have helped us get some of our mojo back. Oh, and by the way, the New York Times did just list Portland as one of the 52 places to go in 2026. So I think that's going to solve all our problems, at least in Washington.
I've seen Portland on a few different lists, and I agree that there definitely is a PR piece there that I think is really important. And I actually see our mayor as working very hard on this, and something that he talks about a lot. He meets with Eric Nordstrom, and I don't want Nordstrom to go away. And I also do think it's a both and it's an important needle to thread. How do you say that? Like, you have to thread that carefully, because I do also hear, I've had multiple small business owners in our district say, hey, sometimes we feel left out because we feel like the mayor's just talking about like Nordstrom or Fred Meyer, and like, so I do think it's a balance, and we do need both, and both are important. And sometimes I do notice, like, when there's a real focus on, like, you know, a Fred Meyer that closed recently, I also was like, well, are people talking about the 99 Ranch that also just recently opened, and the Marshalls that recently opened? So I think there's a lot to it, and I understand that we need diversity and different types of investment, and it's also important to have it be a both and.
I think, I agree with everything my colleagues have already stated, and I'm doing my part to keep Nordstrom open. I'm just kidding, but I really do love that Nordstrom. We go shopping there sometimes. No, but in all seriousness, I think that, the power of local government is really, I think, underrated in how we activate public space. So when we talk about how do we revitalize downtown and an economy where more people are working from home, less people are commuting downtown, we have those big businesses like Nordstrom, for example, that need support and do pay a lot of taxes and help our city. I think about how do we activate a downtown space. A few years ago, when they had the ice rink that opened up, that brought a bunch of people downtown. Every summer, when we have music festivals in Pioneer Square, the entire space is filled with people, and then afterwards they go out to eat, or they go along the waterfront, they go shopping. So I think that our job as city councilors is to really activate these public spaces and to make these shopping areas a place that people want to be. Because the reality is that shopping and business and everything has really changed. People don't shop at brick and mortar stores the way they used to. They're mostly shopping online. People are working from home more, and if places of employment want to be competitive, they need to offer people that flexibility. And that flexibility has been critical for working women, working mothers, people with disabilities. So I think that sometimes we try to force the old ways back, and that's never going to work. We have to actually just activate the spaces that we have and make it a more inviting place to shop and be. So thank you. Written question?
Yeah, so we've got a written question here. What is the plan to improve the homelessness and, more importantly, drug addiction in our district? There are currently 35 to 55 people who die of fentanyl monthly in PDX.
I can take this one first. I think that's a really important question, and I think that's something that all of my colleagues really care about, and we have different ideas about how to get there, but I know that everyone's heart is committed to getting that done. I would say that my personal belief is that we need to make sure that we are not over-investing in a revolving door shelter system where we are putting people into shelter, spending a lot of money to get them in a bed, that does not adequately connect them to the services that are going to get them long-term treatment or long-term housing. And then when they inevitably fail, because that's not how people work and that's not how they get into long-term housing or long-term care, then we throw them back out on the street again for then the city to pay millions of dollars to sweep them, bring them back into the shelter, et cetera. It's a sick cycle, in my opinion. I believe that we need to really be investing in long-term solutions, getting people connected to services, getting people into housing, and creating more affordable housing. So that is where my primary focus is going to be. I understand the mayor's vision as far as expanding shelter beds and making sure people are safe in the winter. The reality is that we do not have enough shelter beds to the ratio of unhoused people that we have right now. And all of our critical services are being prevented from giving people tents or warming capabilities. So if you do not have enough shelter beds, even if every single bed is full, those people are going to die on the street.
or they are going to get frostbite, they are going to lose hands, feet. These are things, I worked regularly with unhoused people when I was a SNAP policy advocate before becoming a city councilor. This is not extreme, this is the truth of what people are facing. So we have very limited dollars at the city of Portland, and we need to be very prudent with how we spend them. And I will say, I am concerned about the mayor's shelter plan. We are spending millions of one-time dollars that we do not have ongoing funding for to create a shelter system that is not going to get people into long-term housing. And as far as addiction and treatment services, that mainly falls with the county. They're in charge of public health. And I think we need to partner with them to make sure that people are connected to those services better and support programs like Portland Street Response that and chat from the fire department that actually help people get there. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. This is clearly a really important topic and is one that our mayor basically ran just on this and made some big promises and has opened up a lot of overnight shelter beds. What I am seeing with him and a place that I'm working with him is making sure that he's continuing to bring in different voices, and especially the folks that have been doing the housing justice work and homeless advocacy work for decades. I am hearing folks that he was close to when he was doing the Shelter Portland board, all of that work, that he's kind of moved away from them. And so I'm encouraging him. I'm bringing together once a month a group of the folks that run the different day shelters in our neighborhood, the folks who run the Sunnyside Shower Project, which as a Sunnyside neighbor, I'm very proud of that work that our neighborhood association is working on. Folks from ACLU. And so I think a piece is making sure that a lot of different voices are part of the solution, part of the conversation, because even in these meetings, I'm hearing things like, hey, we need to make sure these overnight shelters, that there are all the resources that folks could access if they are ready there to get some more long-term support and care. And also, the basic of really being able to ask and check in and listen to folks. And if folks aren't accessing the overnight shelters, being able to ask them why, what are the reasons why, and truly listening to that and taking that feedback. So that's kind of some of the behind the scenes work that I'm doing with the mayor's team. I feel like I still have his ear and he's hearing some of that. I think since December 1st has passed, there's a little bit more pressure because a lot of us said, hey, we'll fund your very expensive plan right now. You said that you're gonna kind of solve this by December 1st, and he has made progress. And also homelessness isn't solved, and there's still people that are suffering, and it's none of us want to live in a world where there are people suffering on the streets. I think that is that's pretty clear, and we're united in that. I agree that there are a lot of different ideas how to get there, and I think we're probably going to need to pull from a lot of different tools. There's not going to be one plan, one style that's going to fix everything, and it's important that the mayor and the council continues to listen to many different voices.
I first wanted to follow up on Council Rio's reference to the chat program. It's run within the Fire Bureau, and one of the things the chat folks do is when fire responds to an overdose, as they often do, they will offer, after reviving somebody, they will offer them, I'm probably going to, probably mangling the name, buprenorphine, which is a drug that's sort of the first step towards weaning yourself off of fentanyl. And if they take that, then I'll follow up with them later on to see if they're willing to see if folks are ready to continue other forms of treatment. It's a great program. It's too small. One thing that we're trying to do to possibly expand it a bit is get the state to set things up so that we can bill Medicaid for that service, and for PSR as well, because we've talked to experts on Medicaid who think that we should be able to bill for those services, but the Oregon Health Authority hasn't rejiggered their codes in ways that we could do that. So we've been talking to legislators about leaving an OHA to make that a priority. So that's one small thing we can do, is expand the chat program if we had Medicaid reimbursing us for its use. One thing about the homeless crisis is it is at bottom a housing crisis, and it would be great to build as much of traditional affordable housing as we can, but for traditional units, building affordable housing seems to cost about $500,000 a unit for a wide variety of reasons. I was talking to a developer a couple of weeks ago who said, you know, there are these manufactured homes, 400 square foot manufactured homes that you can buy, that's relatively cheap. And in a context where there's a lot of people who otherwise might be in the street, having a 400 square foot home is preferable. And he actually had a plan to take the Colwood Golf Course and use that to build hundreds of, to put hundreds of manufactured homes. That's the kind of thing I think we need to be looking.
Do we have time for one more question?
Yeah, and I'd say, I think when we were jamming on these questions and the questions from the audience, we anticipated that maybe one council would be answer a given question. That may not be realistic, but do try to keep your answers short, so we might be able to squeak into, but we'll get one on Zoom here.
Sally on Zoom asked, regarding street renaming policy, could you commit or amend current discussion to not changing any numerical streets?
Sure.
I don't know about that. I think that Sixth Avenue should be Avenue of the Americas, just like it is in New York.
Any
And
other,
Fourth Avenue should be positively 4th Street, even though it's street, not an avenue.
any other comments on that?
No, I'm genuinely okay with it. I would not like to change the numbers. That
Yeah.
sounds bad.
I mean, I do like Cesar Chavez being called Cesar Chavez, and so I wouldn't want to recommendably change that. That's 39th Street. But yeah, but I hear that.
Great, so why don't we do one last question in person and then we'll wrap up?
Yeah, and I'll say, one, I didn't realize I had so much influence over city council. This is awesome. You make the answers much more brief, but glad to get that. But also I'll note that, like, you have more people in line than we'll get to, and questions in the basket. So I'd encourage everyone to use that little time that we have to just ask your question directly to the councilors as they, their availability permits. We have time built in. Thank you.
We also all have constituent coffees basically monthly that you can come and meet with all of us if you sign up for our newsletters, also on social media. Little plug there.
Hi, my name is Gus Kroll. I am a AFSCME union steward. I work at a homeless service provider, and I'm also the chair of the board for Sisters of the Road. I love the thing that you were saying about finding business or empty storefronts. When are we getting something similar with housing? I'm looking at the Ritz-Carlton, a big empty ass building that needs a whole bunch of people in it, because we got a whole bunch of people without housing. And when are we gonna get something that deals with the Airbnb-ification of our housing stock?
Great question. I'll try to be quick. I think what I've heard is that the vacant storefront fee will probably be an easier lift, but will pave the way for looking at rentals and doing something similar too. I know our rental inventory is like multiple years like old, so we also need to be making sure that that's updated. Does anyone else want to add?
I would say this is something that I have looked into, and it's my understanding that there is kind of this myth that we have an abundance of empty apartments that are just going unrented. But if you look at the county did a presentation on this, I think a year or two back that I watched, but the turnover rate for units is about 90 days when they have to do repairs before the next person moves in. So some of that vacancy isn't because we have an abundance of empty housing. I do have personal beef with the Ritz-Carlton though, because they displaced my favorite food carts. So happy to look into that. Just kidding, it's okay. And I'm certainly interested in working with any of my colleagues on a policy to address Airbnb, because you're right, if there are homes that are open and available, then they should be going to people who are going to reside in the city.
Steve, do you want to add anything? No? Okay, all right.
I take it to heart, we're not supposed to all answer everything.
All right, well, if that's the case, we sped through that one. So let's do perhaps one more paper and then, sorry, folks that are in line, but we'll wrap up after this one more paper question.
All right, so can the art tax be modified by city council to exempt more lower income people than are currently exempted without requiring another general vote of the people?
I think the answer is no. It was a ballot measure decision, so it has to be voted on by the people unless my colleagues know something I don't know.
I think actually, since it's not in the charter, council could just decide to could do whatever it wants with the arts tax. I mean, the problem is that if we do, that if we exempt more people, then we'll raise less money and less money will go to schools and the arts organizations. I was against the arts tax because I thought a tax where a so-called income tax where that anybody who makes 30,000 a year pays the same as somebody who makes $1 billion a year is ridiculous. It's also extremely administrative heavy because it's a separate tax with a separate collection mechanism. An idea that I'd like to explore is, at least for the schools part, and I'm not sure what you do with the rest of it, but it's rapidly disappearing anyway. Roll it into the next version of the children's levy. Because property taxes aren't particularly progressive, but they're not nearly as progressive as the arts tax, and then at least it would be, it wouldn't be a separate extra tax you have to worry about. So that's the one, innovative idea that I have about the arts tax.
All right, well, you already kind of beat me to the punch a little bit, but I have one quick rapid fire question to close us out, and then I'll kind of do an outro. But my last question, obviously, there are many questions that we didn't get to this evening. So what is the best way for somebody from Roseway or anybody in District 3 to be able to get in touch with you or share something that they are passionate about? So why don't you each get a chance to answer that one, and then we'll wrap up.
Well, you can email us and what's our email address? What's the basic email address? Counselor.novick@portlandoregon.gov. And I'm spreading this in Spencer now, but I think that at some point soon, we will have the names of all of our staff members up on the website and identify areas they're responsible for. So that should help you to get to the specific right person. We don't have that yet now, but we will.
Counselor.koyamalane@portlandoregon.gov. Counselor Koyama Lane on Instagram, Facebook. I also have an in-district office at Southeast Uplift, and I have folks for my team there when Southeast Uplift is open to the public, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And I also send a weekly Friday newsletter, just like I did as a teacher, just so people can look for it. And I do a constituent coffee once a month too. So come say hi.
We all have the same email, counselor.murillo@portlandoregon.gov. The wonderful Meredith Wave is sitting up here, and I think she usually carries my business cards for me, and she did tonight, so you can come grab them from her if you need that to contact our office. I also, as a true zillennial, tend to be a little bit more responsive on social media than other counselors. If there's something urgent, I recommend emailing the office just because there's multiple staff monitoring it, and I can't answer every direct message that I get. But people have notified me about pretty important things on social media sometimes. It's Counselor Angelita Murillo on my Instagram, Blue Sky, and I had TikTok. We'll see if it continues functioning now that the fascist government have taken over it. Awesome. Well, there are so many ways to get a hold of you all, and I really appreciate you both being here tonight and being so open to our neighborhood members and District 3 members. It's really great to have such a participatory and representative government. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you to everybody for answering your questions or answering customer questions this evening. If you didn't get a question answered, please make sure we've got the basket up here still, and we will be passing those questions on to the counselors. So if there's something burning, please make sure you can leave it there. And as Chris mentioned really quickly, there is a City Club of Portland event. Oh, you all are leaving. We have mingle time. Hold on. There's a City Club of Portland event on February 4th if you want to have the opportunity to hear more from our counselors in this type of panel. And we know that you all go to a lot of different events. So thank you for being here this evening. So stay for another 25 minutes, talk to your counselors, talk to your neighbors, and we'll wrap up at around 8:50. Thanks, everybody.